Ahoy there, Captain Benzie here, coming at you with another video for Eve Echoes. Now, in today's video, we're going to sit down and have some real talk. This is not really the kind of content that I like making, but it is something I deem absolutely necessary at this point in time. The community for Eve Echoes was recently hit by a rather large controversy. It's caused a big outcry. I've had a lot of people asking me to put forward a video addressing it, and I'm going to do exactly that, but probably not in the way that a lot of those people were perhaps expecting, because there's a lot more to this than I think people are making out. A lot of stuff has been taken out of context, twisted, and thrown out there in a rather aggressive manner, and I just think that that kind of behaviour needs to stop, especially since so much of this has been misrepresented. Now, I know I'm going to get a lot of hatred for a video like this. I'm just trying to keep things as real as possible, to talk factually rather than talking, you know, in a way that's sort of, you know, just aggressive and emotional. I want to talk factually about this situation, about this controversy, and how I think it speaks to a larger problem that we have at the heart of the Eve Echoes community, or not at the heart of the community, but there is a small group in the community that I think is causing some rather big problems that need addressing. As I said, this is not a comfortable video for me to do, and if you want to give me hatred and that in the comment section down below, go for it. Just watch the video first and listen to me before you knee-jerk all that angry aggression into my comment section. I am, of course, talking about the Chinese server controversy. This cropped up on Reddit recently. Some people were showing this screenshot and getting rather irate about it. Now, I put out a video fairly recently talking about some of the cool stuff hidden away in the Fulmination content creator test server. And it's worth noting that for the global side of Eve Echoes, there are three separate servers. We have the standard server, the live server, called Aurora. We then have the Fulmination content creator test server, which is an exact mirror of Aurora. There is nothing on the Fulmination content creator test server that is not on live, just we have the capability of creating anything. I can type in a code for an item and just pull it out of the game files into existence, which means anything that's buried in the game files can be brought to the front. It's a useful little tool for us to have a little look through for doing like ship fitting guides, talking about stuff that otherwise we might struggle to do on the live server. Like, for example, me doing a video on wide resonance scanning. I would need to spend hours running around finding one of these, at which point I then need to warp out of system, warp back in, scan it and showcase it and hope it's still there. So I go onto Fulmination to make it happen. There's then, of course, the public test server, which gets opened for things like the May balance update and various different tests they've done in the past, like for sovereignty. For China at the moment, I think there's a misunderstanding that there is a Chinese server and a Chinese test server. There isn't. The Chinese server is not open currently. If I scroll ahead in my little folder here, you'll see that I was asking Joseph about this video. Joseph is the community manager for Eve Echoes. I was asking him what the name of the Chinese test server and the Chinese live server were so that I could give those names, like we have Aurora and Fulmination. Joseph pointed out to me that there is no name for it. It is because it's just a test server. Once that test server goes live, it will have the same name. There is not a Chinese live server yet. It is all test server, like when we had the open beta test and the final test. It is still moving towards that. But anyway, we're jumping ahead of things here. Let's have a look at this image and talk about what actually happened. So as I said, I put forward a video about some of the cool stuff hidden in the game files on the Fulmination test server, and I mentioned three Society of Conscious Thought ships, the Sunesis, the Praxis, and the Gnosis, the destroyer, the battleship, and the battlecruiser for the Society of Conscious Thought. That one there, by the way, is the Gnosis, the battlecruiser. And these appear to be, I was looking at them in the game files and getting rather excited because they're like prototype ships. They don't have skill bonuses, they only have roll bonuses. Then someone put onto Reddit, oh, the Chinese server already has this. People are able to fly these and buy them and all this kind of thing. Look at the favoritism that China is getting. Well, of course, the developers are Chinese, so of course they're going to show favoritism to their fellow countrymen. Now, this caused a big outcry. There's actually then been, I went into the content creator Discord, well, the content creator channel of the official Eve Echoes Discord, and I said, look, Joseph, this is disappointing that we were told that, you know, that there'd be no difference between the Western server and the Chinese server. Now we're being told that they're getting these ships. What's going on? And I just asked a question. I asked a question in a channel that is supposed to be secure for content creators to have these kind of conversations without necessarily blowing things open. Someone then took a screenshot of that, posted it to Reddit, and made it sound like I'm being really aggressive, upset, and annoyed with the developers. I'm not. I was asking for more information, and there's a reason why I'm asking for more information. Because as it turns out, it is a test server. It is just the test server. This is not on live. None of this is on live yet for the Chinese server. Basically, China demands that any game that has online servers have an online server dedicated just to China, so that just the Chinese players can be on that. So Eve Echoes has to have a Chinese server alongside its global server. It's Chinese law. It has to happen, and every online game in China has this. Now, there's another interesting point that is worth bringing up now, which we will come to later, and that it is standard operating procedure for games operating in China to have certain monetization promotions on the test server, and some of those might be considered too pay to win for other regions. I've seen this elsewhere. If you play games like Honor of Kings, or heck, even like Mobile Legends and other games that have been run by companies like NetEase, like Tencent, that operate out of China and tend to have a Chinese server and a Western server, look at the monetization options on a Western server and then compare it to the Chinese server. The Chinese population of gamers is much more open to microtransactions and to what we might refer to as pay-to-win mechanics, things that help you advance in the game considerably faster. Now, it's notable that in a lot of these Chinese variants of the games, they have these aggressive monetization policies that work. The Chinese people, the Chinese gamers, lap this up and go for it. It is a tried and tested monetization scheme, and whether or not you agree with that is completely irrelevant to the discussion here. The point is, for all of these games, it works. It's a great way for the developers to make money. It then means that when you look at the Western equivalent server, so for us that's the Aurora server, there is much less in the way of aggressive monetization. So the idea there, the concept kind of, is almost a win-win for the West. It means that the developer like NetEase can put this aggressive monetization strategy into practice on the Chinese server. They can recoup a lot of money and finance there that helps the game to grow and to expand and have more people working on it, working on exciting new content, balance patches, bug fixes, all this kind of thing. Whilst the westernized server, which is far more closed away from microtransactions, we're much more suspicious of microtransactions. We don't really go with it as much as Eastern countries do. We don't then get that aggressive monetization. We get the same game at the end of the day. We just don't have to pay as aggressively for it, which is a big win. And this is true if you look at things like, for example, PUBG and Free Fire. If you look at even heck, I had a look at into Auto Chess. Chess Rush by Tencent. If you look at the Chinese equivalent of Chess Rush and compare it to the Western equivalent, the Western equivalent is just literally, it's the basics, it's cosmetics and stuff like that. The Chinese variant has all of these new characters that can be unlocked and you'll only get if you... There's a lot more monetization is my point. And that works in the favour of the West by basically, for want of a better way of describing it, the Chinese people, the Chinese gamers are propping up the amount of money that the company makes so that they don't have to be as aggressive in the West, and that's a good thing. Now, the worry about this that a lot of people were upset by was that what we're looking at here, in this image, you can see at the bottom there is a 1.5 million skill point canister there. To the left of it is a 1.2 million skill point, and a 2 million skill point to the right of it. Those three little boxes alone have, what, 4,700,000 skill points. 4.7 million skill points. That's huge. You then have the Praxis there, the battleship on the left-hand side, and a nanocore for it, a legendary Tech 4 nanocore, along with some crates and other bits and pieces in there as well, including a whole boatload of ISK, 90 million ISK in the middle there, 75 on the left, 120 on the right, and then a load of Plex to go with it. Now, I think a lot of people knee-jerk reacted to this and went, oh my god, NetEase is going to be making this game completely pay-to-win, without understanding that, one, this is a test server. This is not live yet. It may not go ahead like this anyway for the Chinese population, but for those it does, well, it's aggressive monetization. They are trying to lure Chinese players off of Aurora, onto the Chinese server, so VPNs, etc. won't be required, and they're doing so with some very aggressive monetization that will ultimately help NetEase by having more money into the game, making the game more profitable, means that there are more resources to be thrown at it. If you are a higher up, and if you're an executive in a company and you're looking at two products, one of them makes you a boatload of money, one of them makes you hardly any money. You put all of the resources you have into the boatload of money box, and just a little bit here and there to keep the other one going if it seems to be profitable. If it's not profitable, well, they shut that down and move on. We want Eve Echoes to be profitable, right? We want this game to keep going, otherwise all the time and energy we've invested, all those cool stories we've got, are just going to fade away into the ether. So we want this game to be productive, we want it to be, like, profitable. We want NetEase to keep this game going. And if they're going to take the Chinese population and aggressively monetize it that way, as long as they don't do that on the Western server, then it's a win-win. And there is no guarantee they will do this on the Western server. They probably won't. One thing I think a lot of people seem to just misunderstand is that basically they look at this and go, oh yeah, these developers are just money grabbing. That's exactly, I read it so often on Reddit and on Twitter and other places. This is what NetEase does. They aggressively monetize a game, they take the money off everyone, and then they shut the game down afterwards. Please, show me an example where NetEase have actually done that, because so many NetEase games are still running almost a decade after they went live. That's not the case. I think it's a lot of people just go, oh, Chinese devs, lol, they're here to take our money and run off with it. No, they're not. They know what is good. You look at NetEase as a company. NetEase as a company is a larger financial operation than EA. It's larger than Bethesda. It's larger than most of the games developers we have in the West. This is a company that knows what it's doing, and it's based almost entirely in mobile gaming, so you know what? I kind of defer to their expertise here. They know that they can go to China and get all of this money from them. They know that if they go to the West, that same stuff isn't going to fly, that we will rally against it, we will not engage with that kind of tactic. They know that Western gamers do not like that whole pay-to-win mechanic. We will not engage with it, and it's not therefore a good way of making money. They know this, they're not going to do it. And ultimately, I think a lot of this comes down to one simple fact, and that's that we in the West are very much... we're very biased against China at the moment. I think it's kind of sad. There's a lot of... heck, a couple of months ago, we literally had a Stop Asian Hate campaign wash over the internet after a spate of attacks on, like, Asian Americans and other cultures in the West being attacked just because they looked different, because they looked like they are of Chinese heritage. And often, they weren't even of Chinese heritage. They could be Filipino or, you know, Malaysian or all these kind of things. It's an ignorant attack just because someone is different. Because when you look at the Chinese language, it's scary. We've got no idea what this means. It's so completely alien to us in the West. It doesn't use the Romantic alphabet, the Romanized alphabet. It's just straight up, it's scary. It's different, it's scary. And I think there's a lot of things where we just look at China and go, oh, well, you know, there's a lot going on in that country that we don't agree with its government. We don't agree with necessarily some of the business practices. Therefore, we're just going to hate everything that's Chinese because we can. Now, look, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong for that stance. I'm not going to get into this in a video like this, definitely. But I think there is definitely criticisms that can be levelled against the Chinese government. But Chinese corporations and Chinese people are different to their government. And the simple fact is that they're not related. They're not related, and just because someone speaks Chinese, just because you see something written in Chinese, doesn't mean it's necessarily scary, doesn't mean it's out there to, you know, utterly crush you and destroy you. We're seeing all of this stuff like, you know, oh, Chinese bot, you know, it's always Chinese bot farmers, despite the fact that many of the operations that were shut down were 100% Russian. There was one that I know for guarantee was like a Spanish company doing it. We don't talk about these because Chinese bot farmers sell. Western bot farmers don't, but it happens. It's still there. And I'm even seeing things like, oh, now the Chinese servers have opened. Notice how fewer bans there are going on. Well, yeah, of course there are fewer bans going on nowadays. It's not because the Chinese servers are open. They're not. It's only a test server. There are fewer bans going on now because NetEase has stopped those companies and people making those accounts. Do you not remember there was a big patch thing recently where you have to actually open up an account on mobile and then you can switch to PC and load into it from there? Well, if you're a bot farmer and your entire operation is set up on, you know, like a PC script, well, that's suddenly much harder to do, isn't it? It means that when they ban all of your accounts, you can't just instantly replace them because it's not possible to do it that way anymore. That's why we're getting less ban accounts, not because, oh, the Chinese servers have opened, so all of those Chinese people have run off and yay, the game is saved because we don't have to deal with them anymore. One thing I can honestly tell you from being in Void, and I know that there's a big sigh from a certain part of the community there, oh, Benzie's talking about Void again. Yeah, damn straight I'm talking about Void again. There is a reason I talk about my alliance tons. I don't run this alliance. The people who do are absolutely amazing, and the ethic behind it is incredible. Genuinely, it blows me away. I've never seen anything like this in a video game. We had Chinese corporations with us, and they were some of the best, friendliest, and down-to-earth players that we had. They were some of just the most loyal and best people that I've seen in EVE Echoes. And then there are plenty of Western corporations that... the point is I'm trying to make here that, look, you can't judge someone just because they speak a different language to you. You can't judge someone because they're from a different country. Yes, that country has different business practices, it's got a different language, it's got a different alphabet, it looks completely different, and it can be scary. There's a lot of anti-Chinese rhetoric going on in the West at the moment, globally, as part, you know, a big global political thing where everything is anti-China this, anti-China that. And as I said, for part of it I agree, but for crying out loud, this is a mobile game. Can we just understand that you don't need to get angry at this? This is just a test server in China. And this, ultimately, if it works for them, and they make a boatload of money off this, that benefits us in the West. Our server gets all of that same content, the same ships, the same, like, actual things like scanning and exploration and all that kind of thing, is all going to come the same way. But they can aggressively monetize in China where they can't in the West. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing for us. Whatever you feel about that, that is a good thing for those of us on the Aurora Live server. Anyway, I've rambled on about this entirely too much. As I said, there's not much flashy graphics in this video. It's, you know, I don't want to go on about this because I just feel like I shouldn't have to. I don't know. I don't know. And as I said, I know I'm going to have a ton of hatred for this. I'm going to have a ton of people going, oh, well, you know, and all of this kind of thing. And I'm just... if you've got points, I'm willing to engage with you in the comments section. We can talk about this, but I just know there's going to be a whole ton of people going, oh lol, and trolls and just aggression, and I don't have the time to deal with that. So if you're going to be an absolute prick in the comment section, then I'm just going to mute you from it. It's as simple as that. I'm open to a discussion, I'm not open to people being aggressive, and you don't have the right to put your point forward however the heck you fancy. It's the internet, but you know what, it's my channel, and I kind of make the rules, so yeah, screwing it. But yeah, I don't want to sit here and talk about this. I don't want to go on about this. I think that ultimately it's a much bigger, you know, it's a much smaller problem than people are making out. I think people are making this much larger than it needs to be. Just look at it as a simple fact that the Chinese server looks like it's going to get its typical Chinese aggressive monetization, and in the West we will continue with things the way they are, and we will still get all of those shiny new toys. And if you want to be that whole, oh, I want all the Chinese people off Aurora because they're all botters and things like that, well, then surely you should be all for the Chinese server getting things like free skill points, free ISK, free Plex, free ships, because that's going to entice those players away from your precious beloved server. Just, I don't see this as anything other than a win for us, because if you are a hate-filled bigot, then it's getting rid of the Chinese players off your doorstep. If you are just a standard person enjoying this, well, you can see that it's going to be more money into NetEase's pocket, which means a better gaming experience for all of us. But yes, I have rambled on entirely too much. Peace out, guys. I don't want to have this kind of conversation again. Just love each other. Humanity's awesome, or it can be. Just work together, have a great time in a mobile game that ultimately is about working together to achieve things that no one person could do. Happy sailing, and see you in New Eden.